What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 73 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 44. It's Font versus Aldo. We got a great card in store for you. Tonight, Lags has work. C has work. Luke, unfortunately, has a case of COVID. So he is off the pod right now until he feels a bit better. And so I have my friend, Shawn Orr, you can find on Twitter, at Shawn Orr, joining me to break down this card. Shawn is a super sharp guy, so you should follow his picks. He wins a lot of money doing it. So we're going to hopefully give you guys some plus TV plays tonight. As usual, you can go to betonline.ag and use the promo code CLUBSUB. Get a 50% bonus up to your first $1,000 deposit. And if you like the show, guys, drop a like and subscribe. Shawn, what do you think of the card in general? You excited for it? Think it's better than what we've had the last couple of weeks? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited to actually watch some fights. Obviously, we didn't have anything last week. I mean, in general, there are fights on this card I really don't care about, but there's a few spots that I just think are typical. Hey, we took a week off and people must have just forgotten how all this works. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, same. I have like deep anxiety about the fact that we're about to have a month off in a couple of weeks, but you know, so be it. I guess I'll be back to hanging out with my family on Saturday night, so not the worst thing ever. But yeah, let's jump into it. First fight of the night, we got Louis Smolka, Vince Morales. I believe you and I are on separate sides of this.
We are.
I actually like Smolka quite a bit in this spot. It's funny because I've always been fairly high on Morales and fairly low on Smolka, but it's like I've been fairly high on Morales inside the context of the guys he's been fighting and how he's been lined. I like what he does. He's a good wrestler. He's a good boxer, but he's low volume. He looks pretty bad when he gets backed up, and when he's gotten put on his back, things have gotten pretty ugly. And on the other side, you have Smolka, who is basically the complete opposite. He's a technical mess, but he's big, he throws a ton, and he's pretty nasty if he gets on top of you. And so, like, if Smolka obliges him a distance kickboxing match, then yeah, this is going to look like a terrible bet. But I feel like Smolka is pretty reliable to go forward, keep a high output, and just kind of force Morales into the kind of fight he doesn't really like. And I do think, while I think Morales is the better wrestler, I think Smolka attempts enough takedowns that me thinking he could get one or two seems realistic. And I think if he gets on top of him, it's going to be pretty bad news for Morales. And then, on top of just the matchup for me, it's like I look at the guys they fought. And, Morales has fought some good dudes, but he just hasn't had a lot of success there. Whereas, pretty much the only guys to beat Smolka are like top 15, top 10 level guys. So I think he should be a good bit wider here. What are your thoughts, Shawn?
Yeah, so I can see the argument that Smolka wins this fight. He's pretty much just going to push forward. He's going to have heavy pressure. He likes to go to the body and up top with his hooks. One thing I really like about Smolka is that when he can't find the target on the head, he will just spam to the body. Now, I don't think the takedowns are going to be there for him. I think we chatted about this briefly. Yeah. I don't think Smolka's wrestling is very good. He mostly goes for whizzer kicks, and I'm kind of on my own little whizzer kick right now where I'm trying to not bet on whizzer kick people because the whizzer kick is just this like terrible, unreliable takedown, and it has diminishing returns the later it goes into the fight because it just requires so much effort and weird positioning. Now, on the Vince side, like I said, I think his wrestling should be better. So I actually think if he wants to, he can land takedowns here, quite frankly. Then it's going to be down to if Vince is going to mind his P's and Q's. Because it's hard to really rate Smolka because there's been different iterations of Smolka. There's been the Smolka of UFC past that has this amazing scrambling ability and kind of this killer be killed attitude. But then there's the Smolka that as of late, where he doesn't really show the same scrambling ability and he does kind of fade. That's a great comment. He kind of gives up in some situations. I haven't liked some of the looks he's shown when he's facing adversity. Now, I'm not saying that these hooks aren't going to be there for him, because I do think Smolka's lead hook is going to be there for him. But I do think that Vince is largely going to get a fight where he can succeed, where he can keep his range and really just pepper Smolka. And then he's going to be breaking pressure with his own takedowns. I think Vince is more on the rise right now, whereas Smolka is kind of either stagnant or sort of on the fall. So I do like Vince in this spot. I think the line should be even. So I have a pretty small play on Vince. So I'm not nearly as passionate as you are on the Smolka side.
Let me ask you something though, because this has kind of been a point of contention for me and kind of the crux of my Smolka bet. If I told you the fight finished, how confident would you be that Vince was the guy that finished the fight?
More confident than Smolka.
Interesting. Okay. So
I think he can knock him out.
Yeah. I mean, I think he can. I just kind of think Smolka's a bit more dangerous myself.
Smolka has more tenacity, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think he has the same finishing upside as he once did. And I do think Vince is pretty fucking tough. I think that Vince has shown wrinkles where he looks like somebody who's not tough, but he's had very strange circumstances for a lot of his fights.
The weird thing, it's weird, and maybe this is an error on my part, but it's like I bet him against Stracco, but like I struggle to get that fight out of my head just because I really thought he was going to beat the brakes off Stracco. And I mean, he won obviously pretty clearly, but it was a lot less impressive than I expected. So,
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But what did you think about Smolka literally tapping to Casey Kenny when it wasn't even really a full submission that was in, and didn't even try and scramble really?
Well, I bet Smolka in that fight too, so I didn't think I wasn't too happy about it.
You didn't like that?
It's funny because that fight, the first like 2 minutes, and he was ripping the body. I'm like, oh my god, Casey's gonna be dead 7 minutes into this fight. Yeah. This is perfect. And then, yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, I would say that fight in particular is probably like my biggest concern. It just seemed like he was just ready to go out and give up as soon as he faced any adversity. Yeah, which is weird though, because he's not really, that isn't classically him.
People get old, people change. We're going to be going over a lot of that tonight.
Yeah. Well, bring us to our next fight. We got Alex Morono taking on Mickey Gall. Shawn, we and you had a pretty fun conversation about this earlier. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so, I mean, if I had to be on a side here, I think it's Gall. But Gall has shown some really bad tendencies and some quit in him. So I don't think that he's really positionally sound to out-grapple Morono here. But just in general, I'm not like a huge Morono fan. I mean, everything about Morono, like if I had never watched MMA and you showed me Morono's tape, I would honestly think there was something wrong with him. He looks off. He's like fighting on his tippy toes. He looks really clumsy. He doesn't cut off the cage very well. He's really reliable to pressure. He's going to go for it. It's all he has to live for is these fights. Whereas Gall, it's not really clear yet. That being said, I know a lot of sharp people that are on Gall. However, I'm kind of sitting tight for now and no play for me.
Yeah, I mean, Morono is like so weird too, right? Because it's like, if I'm kind of with you. If you watch tape on him and then you told me he beat Donald Cerrone and Max Griffin, I would be like, shut the fuck up. There's no way that actually occurred. But it did happen, I want to have a Gall ticket here pretty badly. But, I'm kind of – the problem is – all Morono does is just basically spam volume. Like, that's it. He's got good cardio and he spams a lot of volume. He's there to be hit. He's not very good at it, but at 170 pounds, there aren't a ton of guys who are going to match that volume. And so for me, it's like, I think Gall can take him down whenever he wants. Yeah. But number one, when has Mickey Gall ever prioritized positional control over, trying to hunt a sub? And number two, I mean, Morono, probably the only other good attribute he has is he has good jiu-jitsu, and he's probably not going to get submitted here. And Mickey Gall has gassed in every single fight of his entire career. You know, like the Perry fight was a fairly tepid pace early in the fight. There wasn't even much grappling, and Gall was clearly gassed 7 minutes into it. And so I'm kind of like you said it earlier to me, you're like, you know, I think Williams beats Gall over 15. Like, I kind of do too if he doesn't hurt him in the first minute of that fight. So it's like if I'm betting, like if you tell me, yes, Gall's going to do what Derek Minner did to Charles Rosa and just go there and look to lay in guard and hold him down, yeah, I'd have a lot of interest in him at plus 200. But I don't think he's going to do that. And in the event that Gall gets swept here and ends up on bottom, he is hilarious. Awful. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, he's going to get TKO'd.
So it's like, you know, I saw the line and I was like, I'm definitely betting Gall. And then I taped it and I'm like,
yeah,
might be right.
Yeah. So I think if you're on the Gall side, I definitely think it's probably a wiser bet to bet ITD than it is the money line.
I agree with that.
But I mean, there are some money line purists out there, so they can have at it with the money line if they'd like to.
Yeah, I kind of actually agree with Pepe's take. I actually don't think the over is a horrible look, just because, I mean, outside of Wash Cerrone, how many guys is Morono really putting out, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, Gall did survive, you know, Perry.
Yeah.
And, you know, but albeit it was Perry post bar fight, post marital abuse, and then moving on and getting another girl pregnant who was in his corner. So we're not really sure what kind of Perry that was, but still he did survive.
Big shout out to Mike Perry for winning last weekend. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. I'm going to stick with you here, Shawn. We have a fight that we're going to agree on here. And it is a ride of a fight. We got Jared Bandera coming in on short notice. He's taking on Azamat Murzakanov. What are your thoughts here?
So my thought is really simple. Even before I taped this fight, I was betting on Bandera, because anytime you've got a giant gulf in weight like this, if you're betting them at plus numbers like this, you're going to be making tons of money. So even if Jared Bandera loses this weekend, I will still have made a ton of money off of betting people that are moving up in weight. Now, when you're talking about weight classes, there's no weight class with a bigger disparity than heavyweight to light heavyweight to heavyweight. And then you've got a guy who was fully trained to fight at light heavyweight, who's going to be fighting against a guy who weighs in at the heavyweight limit. So he's not a small heavyweight. And it just seems so stupid that this line is this wide. I think Jared Bandera is probably the best bet of the week. I have a pretty good amount of money on him, both online and then physical. And I am not at all going to be sad or shocked if he loses his fight. The Russian has a pretty fast overhand left. But I've seen on regionals, he sometimes doesn't even put out guys that I don't consider to be all that good with that left hand. And Jared is tough as fuck. Like, Jared, there are fights where Jared could easily just accept getting submitted, and he doesn't. He would rather get his face smashed. So I think as the fight wears on, I don't think this guy's takedowns are going to be there for him, because this guy does rely on breaking forward pressure with takedowns, but he's going to be wrestling a fucking Goliath. So I don't know. That's my take on this. I think it's the best spot on the card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much with you. I mean, so I have a unit and a half on him, and I'm like sitting here debating. It's like, do I want to just full send it and go like 4 or 5 units on? Like, I feel like I don't even think that's that irresponsible, but I'm also like, if I lose like $1,000 on Jared Bandera, I'm going to want to put my head in a blender. So it's like, you know. I mean,
there are red flags where maybe you can't, because it is short notice for Jared, you know, so. But yeah, I think you could go above a unit. I mean, at least I do on these types of fights. I go heavier. I mean,
you bet Carolina against Loopy a couple weeks ago, and we've seen it a couple times in the last few months where it's like, there's a reason there's weight classes. Like, if you've wrestled before, there's a reason you get put in a specific weight class. It's not easy to just go and single leg somebody who's 40 pounds heavier than you, who can just leave
and taller.
Yeah. They can just lean over forward, and suddenly you have just a ton of extra weight on your back. And, look, I get it. I get Bandera is like a classically bad grappler, but like we saw in the last fight, yeah, he got broken by Romanov eventually. If you stuck Alexander Romanov and Asmat Mirzakhanov in the octagon together, Romanov would absolutely mop the floor with him. He's just a much better grappler, a much bigger guy. And you saw Bandera work up like 3 or 4 times in that fight before he kind of finally succumbed. Like he wasn't accepting bottom. And then like Mirzakhanov, he's not even really a wrestler. Like he wrestled, what's his name, Guido Innocente. But like, you look at his takedowns, he's not really running the pipe on singles. He's going way too low. Even in top position, it's not like Spivak or Romanov where he's looking to pass and either do damage or sub. It's kind of just lay and pray stuff. I'm pretty sure if Bandera just decides to give his back up to get up, he's going to get up without really any problem at all. And on the feet, like you touched on it, like he may use takedowns to break pressure, but he doesn't throw any volume, which makes it very hard to close distance to get inside to hit takedowns. Bandera, for all his issues, I actually think does a okay job of keeping guys at range from him, with his front kicks and whatnot. And his volume is just, it's so much more volume. And look, I had a bet on Linge against Mirzakhanov, and I had some concerns about Linge's chin, which we've seen over and over again with Linge. Bandera has eaten a million shots flush on the chin and never goes out. Like Tafa, I feel like, is probably a similar level hitter to Mirzakhanov at heavyweight, and he clipped him clean on the chin a bunch of times and didn't even really visibly hurt him at all. And so you're giving me, to your point, a guy with 3 UFC fights who is 6 inches taller with 9 inches of reach, who weighs in at 265 against the guy who is training to fight a light heavyweight, who doesn't throw strikes while the big guy actually throws a lot of strikes. And you're giving me this big guy against this 35-year-old debutant at plus 180. You have to bet it, I think, right? You have to just, take the stab.
This is what gambling is when you see an edge, you have to take it, and you have to take it pretty hard. You might lose. It's gambling, it's variance, but like you said, the small things like Bandera keeping people at range with his strikes, and the fact that he has 9 inches of reach is massive against this guy who basically relies on lunging in and throwing 1 or 2 power shots. The dynamic is in Bandera's favor. The size is in Bandera's favor. The experience is in his favor. So, yeah, I think just bet it hard, and don't cry if it loses.
That's the only way to do it, right? And with all the juice that's been hitting the last couple months, all the tears are gone anyway. So,
yeah.
Moving on, we got a weird one that could be fun. We got Claudia Poyles taking on Chris Gritsmacker. I haven't bet it yet because I think we're probably going to get plus money on Gritsmacker, but I actually like him a decent amount here, to be honest. It's kind of funny. I bet Poyles against Jordan Leavitt, and the fact that I only went 1 unit on Poyles says all you need to know about what I think of him. Like, I am as anti-Jordan Leavitt as it gets, and I was not super confident in taking a plus 180 shot on him. I just don't think Poyles is very good. He's a terrible striker. You even saw it in the Leavitt fight. He was kind of shying away from standing exchanges. He was happy to just scramble with him and then just kind of prioritize positional control, which was nice to see, but 6 minutes into the fight, Leavitt was dead pretty much and just stopped trying to work up. And so it's like, could he – I know Grits has bad takedown defense, but what are the chances he actually wrestle fucks him here? Davi Ramos fought Gritsmacker and did eventually sub him, but it took him 6 takedowns to do it. And Davi Ramos is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the world. Grits does a pretty good job of getting up. He can get taken down, but he gets up. He goes forward. He does a ton of attritional work, a ton of output, great cardio. I get the feeling from Poyles, from everything I see, that he is a very, very breakable body. The only case for me, Poyles-wise, is like he's got to pretty much get 7 or 8 minutes of control, and I just don't really think it's that likely. Grits has fought better guys. He's fought better grapplers, to be honest, much better grapplers multiple times, and he's been able to work up every single time. I think he should be closer to like minus 200 here, if I'm being honest. What's your take?
It's pretty similar to you. I am waiting on the line right now, but there's just a lot to like about the Grits spot here. Even if you just go back and watch his last fight versus Garcia, he just does so many things correctly in that fight where you have to have a level of faith that Grits has good technique still. So whatever weird garage training he's doing, because we all see the Instagram videos of him like literally doing jumps with bands and stuff like that. whatever he's doing, his conditioning was on point for the fight. He was checking leg kicks. He was hitting the body. He was going up top. He was pressuring, and he basically broke Garcia. And based on last weekend's or 2 weekends ago fight, Garcia versus whatever that regional guy.
Levy? Levy.
Yeah, Garcia, I mean, he's not a guy you break really easy. And Grits base and his fight before his UFC debut, the short notice, he didn't break there either. And Grits just flat out broke him. I'm surprised he didn't end up TKOing him. Now, on the side of Poyles, like you said, he looked almost afraid to exchange with Jordan Levitt. Now, you could chalk that up to the fact that he hadn't fought in a long time. But at the same time, you would think if he hadn't fought in a long time at his age, he would have had this massive boost in skill, and he would have come out and put on a clinic on somebody like Jordan Levitt. However, Jordan was actually winning a lot of the early striking exchanges if you watch back. I don't know, Poyles, like, he kind of just strikes me as that pretty good brown belt at your gym who does some flashy stuff. He does some cool little rolls when he's in the transitions. He's got a pretty face, but he does look like somebody that can get broken. Credit to him, he's had some really gutsy fights. But Grits, he has a lot higher level of competition, and I do think he is the side. I think he's going to win. He might even finish him, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Didn't Marco, I believe Quinn sent us a message earlier about it. Didn't Marcos Mariano hold him down for about 2 minutes as well? Like, if Grits ends up in full guard, he might just lay on him too for about 3 minutes, you know?
Yeah, but he's going to be active. He's not going to let. So that's the thing is, like, it's not like Grits ever stops. This Poyles guy, he was loving the fact that he could just kind of sit on Jordan while Jordan rolled for leg locks and stupid shit. He loved it. He was in heaven. Yeah. But Grits is going to be beating the shit out of him the whole time, you know?
And it's also just like, I mean, Poyles' best win is Jordan Leavitt.
Yeah.
He looked pretty bad against Martin Bravo. I know it was a while ago, but it's not. It's like the epitome of, like, the guys beating Grits are all very, very good. Maybe Poyles is that guy. I really don't think so, though. You know,
I don't think so, man. And I think I had a lot. I actually had a good amount of money on Poyles over Leavitt. I went hard on that one, but that's just because Leavitt sucks.
Anyway, moving on. I'm going to go to you here. We have an interesting one. We got William Knight against Alonzo Menafield. It's a fight nobody wanted, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fun little brawl, I guess, of a fight. But I bet Menafield early. I bet him at -135. Honestly, William Knight is so raw. He basically is some kind of a exercise trainer for, like, MILFs wherever he lives. That seems like his full-time job. So, like, I mean, I like the guy. He's a great character. He's had some really fantastic wins, but he just doesn't really have a well-rounded MMA game. He has, like, one or two things he goes to, and then some pretty raw power. But Menafield is well schooled, I guess, compared to Knight. You know, he's at a legitimate camp. He looked a lot more composed versus Ed Herman. So I do think Menafield has the option either to put out Knight, or he has the option to really just win over 15. And I think he hasn't beat really anywhere, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much with you. I haven't played it, but I'm thinking about playing Menafield. It's weird, and the thing that's kind of bugging me out a bit about the fight is, like, it was -110 last time they were booked, and I was like, I lean Menafield, but no strong feelings. And I know opinions evolve, but it's like, this is 5 months later, and I'm like, I might bet a -140. And it's like, where was that opinion 5 months ago, John? You know,
things change, man. Things change. I mean, he beat beating Ed Herman the way he did is a pretty solid look, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And the calf kicks were a nice addition to his game, even though he still didn't throw enough for them. But, you know, it's funny. I was chatting with Andrew about this fight, and I was just like, the thing is, and the reason I'm thinking about betting Menafield, like, if you told me William Knight was +200 here, I still wouldn't consider betting him. And it's like the fact that I wouldn't
Yeah.
consider betting him when he's plus 200, he's plus 125, means I should probably have money on Alonzo Benefield, right? Like the only thing Knight really, he's a terrible striker. The only thing he really has is kind of body lock takedowns. But I mean, Devin Clark went 1 for 13 on takedowns against Alonzo Benefield. And Devin Clark's a good fucking wrestler, you know? So I just don't think that's going to happen. To be honest, I actually think a repeat of the Jung fight, if Benefield decides he wants it, is a lot more likely than Knight having any, real success grappling. So, like, I kind of think Knight's pretty KO or bust, and I'm not even really sure how hard he hits, to be completely honest with you. So, yeah, I think Benefield's aside. I don't feel very good about it, but I just don't see where Knight wins this fight, okay, with any kind
of... Just bet at medium, because I'm with you. I mean, how much can you really trust Benefield? Right. But, I mean, there's clearly some kind of an edge here in terms of skill differential. So I only put like 1.5 units at minus 135. I feel okay about that.
Yeah. I mean,
Knight is a way better nail.
That is definitely true. That is.
He is.
No, but you're right. I mean, and that's the thing. Like the skill gap here is enough that on pure skills, Benefield is minus 300, right? It's just really. And I don't think Knight can really have that grappling success. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's just I've never bet on Alonzo Benefield. Actually, no, I take that back.
You did versus OSP.
I did versus OSP. That is accurate. Don't remind me of that.
Sorry.
Moving on, I'll stick with you again. We got Mallory Martin taking on Cheyenne Velismus, formerly Cheyenne Bays. What are your thoughts here?
My thoughts are, what is that about? Nobody seems to know. JP still has it in his Instagram. That
I saw that. I'll tell you what it's about. She got a $50K bonus and suddenly didn't need a second income.
And she's hanging around with all these Hawaiians at Extreme Couture, and she's like, "Hey, I don't know. I don't want to speak badly about somebody's marriage or something like that, but." Yeah, I mean, as far as the fight goes, I mean, it's a weird fight, right? I don't think you can bet Cheyenne Bays at this number. Is she like minus 200 or something? I didn't even look at it.
Yeah, anywhere from minus 175 to minus 205, depending on the book.
I mean, spending juice on women's fights is, especially because of the lack of actual fights that they have, is really a recipe for disaster. So I'm probably just going to stay off this spot. I did bet her KO line the last fight because I thought it was possible, and she did hit it. I mean, she could KO Mallory, but the line is, I think it's like plus 550. So it's not the same as last time. It was plus 1,000. So yeah, I don't have any interest in that. I do think Mallory has some pretty suspect defense. We saw that in the Cyphers fight, but we also saw that Velismus can be grappled, for 3 rounds by the head throw or whatever the heck. So I mean, it's kind of there's some fights where, for me personally, I just want to look at what they do and then use that information for later matchups. I think that's what I'm going to do here.
Yeah. So like, that's kind of my question, and I'll put it to you. It's like, do we even know what Cheyenne Bays is? Like, what would you even say her game is,
Stand up, pretty much. Good measured striking for women's MMA. She seems to have some pretty good instincts based on that KO last time. So I will give Velismus some credit. She does have killer instinct. I mean, that's more than you could say about Mallory Martin. Velismus wants to hurt you. But yeah, I don't know about her grappling really, So
yeah, so I agree, and I do like the physicality that Cheyenne brings to the table. It's hard not to like it, but
you like her physicality.
But it's like, I don't know. And I was talking to Gugabe about it, and he was just like, scarf hold's kind of like a random thing. It's like, I get it, and if she got held down for 1 round with it, I would sort of get it. The fact that she was able to, first of all, Ruiz was able to hit it 3 times in a row and then basically just control that position 3 times in a row is pretty disturbing to me. there's not really a ton of bottom footage of Bays. You know, there's one fight regionally where she on her back and she played guard, which I hate. And now, look, I think Mallory Martin is terrible. I honestly considered betting ciphers against her. But
I did bet ciphers.
Did you? Yeah, and I mean, it looked like a good bet. And like Mallory, she's very soft. She's very easy to hit. She seems a bit fragile, but she is a pretty solid wrestler for WMMA, and she will attempt takedowns, you know? And so you're telling me I think Cheyenne's far more skilled, but she's really hasn't shown a whole lot defensive grappling, and what she has shown isn't good. And so you're telling me she's facing a girl who's going to try to take her down, and that girl is plus 160 when I know or I've seen Bays either not be able to get up or play guard. I don't know. It's weird. I think the line's probably off. I'm kind of where you are. I'm not like dying to play Martin, because if it turns out Cheyenne can just get up with no problem, then she's minus 400, right? So, whereas Martin's path seems at best, you know, slight to medium-sized favorite. So I'm not dying to play Martin here. I kind of want to sit back and watch it as well, but I think laying anything on Bays here is kind of insane. Like, if you're going to lay a big number in WMMA, they better have a fucking huge grappling advantage.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And there are better ways to simp Velismus than to bet on her, in my opinion. I will say that to Velismus' credit, at least she did leave the gym that prepared her to get scarfolded for 3 rounds. And she did go to a gym that does have a really deep stable of WMMA fighters and good coaches. So, I mean, I'm not at all going to be shocked if she's more than prepared for Mallory Martin, because Bays does have the intangible toughness. You know, toughness and killer instinct are things that no coach is going to teach you. So she could be upgrading her skills.
I do agree, but that also begs the question, is that gym going to have Alonzo Menafield ready for William Knight's body locks?
Well, they had him ready. So they did have him ready for Devin Clark. So there is a little bit of proof. So yeah, but oh God, now you got that in my head. It's too late. I can't cash that bet out.
Moving on, we got Manel Cape making his return, looking to string 2 in a row together in the UFC for the first time, taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I'll be honest, I don't really want to have any part of this fight, but like the Zhalgas line is up to plus 220 in some places, and it keeps going up. And it, like, I don't want to bet him, but I mean, Cape's volume, it is so low. He's going to allow anybody to stay in any fight. He has no grappling threat in this fight, and Zhumagulov has at least some grappling upside and is reasonably busy. I kind of think it might be one of these fights where it looks close, but Cape wins a close fight on power optics a good portion of the time. But at the same time, it's just like, I'm pretty confident that if this goes 15 minutes, Zumagulov's going to land more strikes than Cape is. And with that dynamic, the line getting to where it is, I haven't bet it yet, and I might not, but if it starts to creep up into that plus 250 range, it becomes very hard for me not to. Like, I respect Cape's talent. I respect his speed. I respect his power for the weight class. But the reality is, even for big hitters, KOs at 135 are often, I mean, you're seeing it with, not that they're similar, but with Cody Garbrandt. You know, KOs, there are guys who hit hard, but, you know, they're not as reliable as they are at like heavyweight. And with that being the case, if you can't grapple and you can't put out a high pace, it's very hard to justify a minus 250 line against a guy who can grapple and who will keep a higher pace than you. You know, I laid the juice on Cape against Ode Osborne in his last fight, and I did not feel very good about it at the end of that fight. I felt like Ode was winning minutes there early in that fight pretty clearly. And so, like, that's always going to be a concern I have with him. And now, yeah, I don't really rate Zhumagulov that much, but I know he's going to do enough here to be competitive on minutes, and that might be enough for me to bet him. What do you think?
Yeah, so I don't think the grappling is going to be there for Zhumagulov. I do think that Cape is a better wrestler than maybe you think. I don't think that Zhumagulov's going to be hitting takedowns, and if he does, I think Cape is going to be standing up relatively easily. Go ahead.
I don't think he has a chance to like top control. And what I am saying is though, like if anybody were to hit takedowns here, I think it's far more likely to be Zubagulov.
I actually think it's more likely Cape would. I mean, because Cape was showing some good wrestling skill against what the hell is his name? No, well, that fight, but also the first fight versus what's his
Pantoja?
Pantoja. Yeah. He hit a couple takedowns in that fight. I know he trains. I don't know if he's still at AKA, but I do know that he has some really good training partners there for wrestling. As far as the KOs go, I mean, the thing that Cape has going for him over, I think, some other talent in that division is that's a great one, Edward. Thank you. I think that he has a really good diversity to his strikes, and he's pretty sneaky with his attack. He kind of baits you into traps. But yeah, to your point, he does cede volume, and we've seen already 2 examples in his UFC fights where ceding the volume has kind of bit him in the ass a bit. I do think that Cape is very, very, very talented, but I'm just not sure that he understands the MMA game. But that being said, Zumagulov is frequently short with his punches. Yeah. He's not going to be nearly as fast as Cape. I don't think he has the grappling upside that maybe you do. So I can't play Cape at this number based on his inability to game MMA. So for me, it's just overall a pass personally. Maybe play Cape KO if you're feeling frisky, but I just think there are better props on this card altogether.
Fair point. Moving on, we got Jake Matthews taking on Jeremiah Wells off his KO of Worley Alves. What are your thoughts here, Shawn?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to judge this Wells guy. I know some people that are really passionate about Wells on this card. Wells has the foot movement of Ryan Bader. He's like very clunky. He's got clogs on. He's kind of slow, very top heavy, just throws really sloppy bombs. Doesn't really have the best defense. From what I've seen, he has decent wrestling upside as far as his top control. I know he trains with really good guys in Philadelphia, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does just lay and prey on Jake Matthews. On the Matthews side, we know that Matthews is a bit of a flake. We know that he's never going to really pour it on you. I mean, he didn't even finish Diego Sanchez. You know what I mean? Like, there's just – like Matthews looks the part. He's very physically noticed. He's a very physical guy, but like I just don't see like the killer instinct out of him. I think if you had to be on a side here, you should just bet Wells KO personally. I'm going to pass on it though. I just don't care about this fight or either guy. What do you think?
Yeah, you made a good point about Matthews. We call that looks like Tarzan, hits like Jane, or fights like Jane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm kind of. It's weird because like taping Wells, I had 2 thoughts about it. I was like, one, I think from a technical MMA skill level, I think he's quite poor, especially as a striker. You know, he's the kind of guy who, the first time he fights a guy who knows how to throw a jab and cut an angle and pivot away on the fence, is going to just cut him to ribbons without any problem at all. But that said, Matthews isn't really that guy. And I will give Wells credit for this. He understands his limitations, it seems like. And so you either see him going balls to the wall, looking to take your head off, or trying to take you down. And he is a black belt. Yeah. I guess, you know, my issue with Wells' grappling is it's like the guys he's out grappling at CFFC are just really not even close to UFC level grapplers. And so I'm a little... You know, we saw Worley sweep him pretty easily and then hold him down when he got on top of him early in that fight. Now, Worley obviously is a very good grappler. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. So how much take out of that? Again, I don't know. But, like, he's certainly not on the level of, you know, a Pat Sabatini or Sean Brady when it comes to grappling. But he'll go for it. And I do sort of agree that he has a reasonable chance to get on top of Matthews and hold him down. But even so, you know, I get all the points for Wells. You know, Matthews is a flake. He is not the guy that's going to put out a high output and, you know, cut angles and just fight off his jab. At the same time, though, it's so hard for me to just overlook the fact that I think Matthews is probably more skilled at everything, including wrestling. Maybe not pure jiu-jitsu, but probably the better striker. I couldn't bet Matthews in the spot because his game is the kind of game that, it's so easy to imagine him just swinging wildly at Matthews and Matthews just covering up and dying. I can picture it so vividly, like Matthews having success for 2 minutes and then just panicking, or the Rocco Martin fight, eating one big shot and then diving headfirst into a guillotine. But Wells looked good against Alves, don't get me wrong, but I still sort of think Alves definitely wins that fight more often than not. And so I don't know, maybe he'll beat Matthews and prove me wrong here and prove that he is like UFC caliber. I still don't really see it. I couldn't lay the price with Matthews, but I mean, Wells lost a decision to Vinicius de Jesus like 2 years ago. Like that is, I think that speaks volumes about what his upside is. It's like without that fight, I could maybe get on board with like a stab at him here, but it's like I know Jake Matthews is better than Vinicius de Jesus by a considerable amount.
Yeah, so there's maybe like 4 things I'll say, and then we can move on because neither of us have bets on this. Number one, like CFFC by the numbers is a pretty good organization, so we know that getting wins there is good. Also, Wells seems to have reasonably good cardio for a guy who looks the way he is. I would also say that this is going to be the first time, because we don't know the context of all those regional fights. I didn't watch those fights when they happened. I don't know how many days notice he had. I don't know what his training situation was, his jobs, all that stuff. I don't know what was going on in his life. Whereas Matthews has had basically a cupcake schedule for the most part and had training camps for forever. So we really know what the product of Jake Matthews is. Whereas with Wells, he's getting this full training camp with good guys. So I mean, we'll see, but part of me does feel like the Worley Alves win was a bit of the element of surprise.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only other thing I'll say is it's so bizarre because I agree with you about Matthew's cupcake schedule. How big of a fucking outlier is that Li Jingliang fight? Like, him beating Li Jingliang by decision just is so hard to believe in hindsight, but it happened.
Shit happens. Shit happens.
Moving on, we got Maki Patolo taking on Dusko Tadorovich. I love Patolo here, to be honest. It's funny because I was Team Dusko coming into the UFC. Not that like I thought he was coming for the strap or anything, but I knew he had a good jiu-jitsu game, and I thought his head movement and ability to kind of break extended striking exchanges with the clinch would be enough to kind of avoid getting punished for his hands always being down. I think it's turned out to be the case that he's actually not that strong in the clinch. And when you get off, the Serbian and Brazilian regionals, it turns out guys fighting at 185 pounds in the UFC are a bit tougher, a bit harder to hold there. And so, look, I don't hate Dusko. I still think he's a decent fighter, but the reality is he's very, very easy to hit in boxing range. He's also something I noticed is he's not a particularly accurate striker. Teddy Ash was outlanding him a distance fairly easily when they fought. Gregory Rodriguez, look, he's a good striker, but pretty much anybody that's bit the mouthpiece with Rodriguez has had no problem hitting him back either. Jordan Williams, Jun Young Park, and yet Tadorovich was missing just about every time he threw there. And so a guy who's not accurate and is going to seed 1-2s, well, then it's like, can he out-grapple you? And like on the other side, look, Patolo is not great by any means, but, Patolo is a decent boxer. He's reasonably technical there. He does keep his hands up. He's very, very reliable to push a pace. He's going to a much higher output than Tadorovich has. I feel very comfortable or very confident that Patolo is going to win most pocket exchanges in this fight. And like, if Tadorovich does go to the clinch, I actually think Patolo is pretty good there. I mean, we just saw, and I don't want to take too much away from it because I don't rate Julian Marquez that highly, but Marquez actually is strong in the clinch and is very strong in general. And Patolo was having pretty much no problem pummeling for underhooks and reversing position, both in that fight and the Charles Byrd fight. And so I don't really think Tadorovich is likely to have many advantages there. And so ultimately, I think it's a close fight, but I think Patolo is the more technical boxer. He keeps a higher pace. I don't think he's going to get clinch fucked. My big concern really is the cardio and Patolo's penchant for doing really dumb things when he starts to get tired late in fights. or early in fights. I mean, the Darren Stewart fight, he looked great, and then he stuck his head in the guillotine. It seems like once a fight, he's going to do something that's potentially catastrophic and fight ending, and it's just a matter of whether or not he can survive that. Maybe he won't, but I do favor him not significantly, moderately on minutes here, and I think he's probably the better wrestler. So at plus 145, I took a pretty big stab at him. What do you think?
Yeah, so I have no play on it right now. I did just tape this one, kind of did a cursory tape, and I really know how both the guys fight, so I don't really need to do like a deep dive at this point. I've watched all their fights at this point, but I think there is some credence to what you're saying. I do think that one thing I noticed watching back on the Gregory Rodriguez fight is just how easy it is to counter Dusko. So Dusko, he has this. I think his style is cool, but it's just very flawed. Yeah. He does like to lunge in, and he doesn't really cut the angle that well. He just kind of lunges in. And to your credit, or to what you were saying, the reason why he's so inaccurate is because he rarely ever has the right angle when he's jumping into the pocket. And it's pretty easy to counter him. Gregory did it like several times when Dusko was jumping into the pocket. I have a sneaky suspicion that Dusko was, kind of one of these like Serbian bully type of guys who could really just pressure anybody in his regional fights. And now that he's facing guys that are really willing to throw back at him while he's throwing, I think it's giving him a lot more problems than he anticipated. Because Dusko either likes to go or not go. He doesn't really do well when it's an actual firefight. To Maki's credit, Maki does throw back every single time you throw at him. And he has some sneaky combinations. He has a pretty nice uppercut. And Dusko does dip his head sometimes on some of his exchanges. But also, too, based on Instagram footage, and I know people don't like to look at this, but I do because it's people training for fights. He was really, really practicing his check hook. And the check hook is going to be there all day for when Dusko's crashing the pocket. I don't think he's going to have the grappling upside like you say, or like you said he won't. Because, Maki does seem pretty proficient in the clinch. One downside to Maki is that as the fight goes on, he gets redder and redder and redder and tired, and he collapses. So he's on a lot of shit lists, kind of mine included. But I do think if you had to bet somebody in this fight, you got to go with Maki. I mean, it kind of just seems like a plus number in front of Maki's name doesn't really make much sense to me. But as of now, I am passing, and I'm just going to do a little more thinking on it.
Yeah. I mean, I bet Maki against Marquez in the last round of that fight. Like the last 3 minutes where I was just like, oh my God, please just survive. Please just survive. You could tell he really, really didn't want to quit, but just inevitably found himself in.
I bet Marquez sub.
Oh my God.
I thought it was dead the whole time. I'm like, dude,
after the first takedown where he actually passed on the takedown, I was like, oh, he's not going to guillotine. He's completely fine. Yeah.
It sucks too because I like Maki as a fighter. I mean, he really does bring it. So I like both of these guys.
He's had a weird run too. Like even the Impa fight, he was probably winning each of the first 2 rounds to like the last 30 seconds where he got hurt. It's just a bizarre career, and either a send off and I'll lose money on a third straight Dusko fight, or we'll see. We will see.
I mean, it does kind of feel like the Jillian Roberts spot, or not Jillian, Randa Marcos spot versus Liviana Souza, where like Marcos was on everybody's shit list. And I was like, this is a no fucking brainer. Like, I don't care. Marcos gets cut and I lose money, or I'm going to win this fight. I think one thing that I do notice, though, is Maki does get hit by right hands a lot. Yeah. Dusko does throw that looping overhand right. But I also don't think Dusko has that much power either.
No, he's not really hurting guys. And obviously Puna hits like a truck, but we have seen Dusko get hurt a good bit by Puda.
He
and
stays
Rod.
calm though. I'll give him
does.
credit, man. He doesn't show it, you know.
He's not lacking for confidence. I like his swag, and like you said, honestly, that's maybe the best way to put it. Of like, and I got sucked into it. He's really fun to watch fight. He's just, he has things you can do at the regional level that just are not going to work at this level of MMA, unfortunately. Yeah. So
I hope you win.
I hope I win as well. Moving on, we have another fight recently added yesterday. Brian Barberena taking on Darian Weeks. I am going to bet Barberena here, and probably pretty big. I'll be honest, the line opened this morning at Barberena minus 175, and I hadn't taped it yet, and my initial reaction was, that's kind of weird that a guy with 5 pro fights is only minus one. He's only minus 175 against. He was minus 260 last year against Anthony Ivy, and now he's minus 175 against Darian Weeks. And then I look back at, I wasn't even sure I was going to tape this today, but I looked about an hour ago or 2 hours ago, and it's down to minus 120. And I'm like, is Darian Weeks like a super prospect or something? And so I taped it, and I don't really get it, to be honest. Weeks seems like a good athlete. He's a reasonable striker. He seems like he hits hard. I don't think he's that good, though. I don't think he's that. I mean, first of all, he's not tested at all. The guy's been crushing cans. In terms of his striking, yeah, he seems reasonable, and he seems to hit reasonably hard. But again, I don't really know how much weight to put on his KOs, because the guys he's beating are all bums pretty much. Like his last fight in LFA, he fought a guy named Chris Fairley, who really should be fighting at 155 pounds, and he cut right through him, but not before he had his back taken in that fight. And I've seen his back get taken multiple times regionally by pretty bad grapplers as well. And it's like Weeks calls himself a wrestler, but his wrestling is pretty bad. He gets out scrambled pretty routinely, and he's an okay striker, but is that going to translate to the UFC? I don't really know. Like I look at him and I'm like, okay, he seems like a young fringe UFC talent. Maybe he's UFC level. I'm not sure. And then you have Brian Barberena, who's got, 15, 16 fights in the UFC under his belt. He's been fighting absolute killers. The guy was 5 seconds away from beating Vicente Luque. Obviously, he's coming off a loss to Jason Witt. And to be honest, if that fight didn't happen, 1, he'd be minus 250 here. 2, I'd be unloading on him at this line, to be completely honest. That fight did happen, and he looked like utter shit. Witt dropping him is an absolutely awful look, and it's possible his durability is just cracked, but I can't see a scenario where he gets badly out-grappled here. He faced 42 takedowns in his last 2 fights against Ivy and Witt, and basically gave up very, very minimal bottom time. The guy works up right away. He's fought much better grapplers than Darian Weeks. So I don't think that's really a threat. And so then it's a stand-up fight. It's like I have a guy who went 50-50 with Vicente Luque, who gave Leon Edwards tons of fits on the feet and keeps a really high pace. And he's fighting a 5-0 debutant on short notice who had to pull out of a contenders fight in September with COVID, who trains at a terrible gym and has fought nothing but cans, and I'm getting near even money on Barberena. It just doesn't make sense to me. There is obviously the fear that he's done, but if he's even 80% of his former self, he should really handle Weeks with no problem at all. I think he should be closer to minus 200, to be completely honest. So I'll have a decent sized play on him. Like I said, I'm not going to go huge just because, it hasn't looked good recently, but this would be the worst loss of Barberena's career, really. So I like him quite a good bit here. What do you think, Shawn?
Yeah, I did a little bit of taping on this one before we got on because this was the late ad, so I didn't have too much time. I do think that Weeks does show some decent skill, albeit it's over some pretty low level competition, so you can't really measure it that well. I do like his presence in the cage. I do think he has a pretty decent ability to keep range. But that being said, I mean, there's just a lot of spots like this where you've got a guy who's a vet, who's seen it all, and he's going against a guy who hasn't seen anything at all, and the vet will generally pull out the win. Now, what you were saying was that we don't know about Barberena's durability at this point. It is true. I mean, he had a very serious surgery not too long ago. He did get dropped by Witt. I personally don't think Witt is very good. I think he's basically king of the regionals. I don't think he's like a UFC level. Yeah, I don't know. I guess just let the line sit. It is concerning whenever you see a ton of money coming in on a side that you don't understand. So it makes you think that somebody knows something you don't. So I'm going to kind of poke around, ask around, like see what's going on here before I actually make any official play on it. But as of now, I don't know how you could take weeks at this number. But I'll probably end up making some sort of a play on Barberina soon. I was just at FanDuel. It's down the street from me, and they still had the old Barberina line. But if I could have gotten like the plus 100 when I was there, I mean, why the fuck not? Why not?
He was plus 100?
I thought I heard that he was like plus 100 now.
I see minus 120 right now.
Somebody told me in my DMs, I think it was actually Pepe, told me it was plus 100. I'm not sure. I'm not sure though. I have to like poke around. Maybe Pepe can throw a comment up, but yeah, I don't know. I think just let the line sit, or maybe just cost average into it. You're going to be catching a falling knife because, you know, the week's money is coming in. But I mean, if you want a little Bam Bam action, why the hell not? He's going to bring it. You know, he always fights.
Yeah.
It's just, who knows his level of commitment at this point too. You know, he's got things outside the UFC. I think he has like a farm. He's had some serious injuries. But he does train at a really good gym, and he always brings it. And like you said, he's had very competitive fights over some of the elite in the UFC.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say is, and I mentioned this to you when we were chatting before we went on, but like the other dude, Weeks, looks like a pretty big muscle-bound guy. And like those guys, now there are guys like Jeremiah Wells, you touched on earlier, has surprising cardio for that size. Joaquin Buckley has surprising cardio for that size. But most guys like that really can't fight at a hard pace for very long without gassing out. And Barberina, we know, is going to push a pace while he's on the feet. And Weeks has never, as a professional, been out of the second round in his career yet. So I don't know. I'm with you though. The line is scary. I don't really understand it at all.
You're gonna have to ask around. I feel like it's like too short of notice to make like too firm of a call. But I think like, if you just look at the macro viewpoint here of this fight, I think Bam Bam's a play. I mean, but it is concerning.
ACL removed? Like what?
I don't know, man. It's possible he didn't train hard for the fight, dude. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he does have a farm he works on full time and shit. Like, I don't know what he's doing, you know? I don't know.
Anyway, moving on. We got Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis. This is a fun one. Chris Curtis, quick turnaround after knocking out Phil Hawes. What are your thoughts here, Shawn?
Yeah, I think Allen's going to beat him. I think it's Curtis, like he was just getting bombed on by Hawes. I actually made a small play on this one earlier today. I bet Allen by KO. I mean, there's a few things here. I think Allen's obviously trying to sharpen up his stand-up skills. He did make the move over to Sanford. He did look a hell of a lot better versus Puna. I'm surprised he didn't finish Puna, but Puna's tough as fuck. And yeah, I just feel like if Curtis is going to be doing the same thing he did against Hawes, I mean, Allen's going to have a hell of a lot more volume. He's going to have less power, but I do think he's more precise than Hawes. Yeah. And then also, I think if it goes to the ground, I'm not going to be shocked if Allen decides to pound him out because maybe a little narrative, maybe to get one back for his buddy Hawes, you know, who he trains with. So it could be a bit of a revenge thing. I think I got like plus 850 or something on KO. And I just thought it was pretty wide considering how often Curtis gets hit. And he has been put out before, and just seeing the career trajectory of Allen right now and knowing what he's trying to do in there, I think that it's a decent spot for a small play.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. And it's like, how much can you take away from Curtis and Hawes? Like, Phil Hawes has not, like, he's fun. Had a great entrance music coming out at MSG, but he's never seen a fight he hasn't run away from. Like, even the shot that put him out, did not seem like it was a super hard shot to the body. It just seemed like he wanted no moss at the end after he took it. And on the other side, it's like Allen is whatever I've had my issues with Brendan Allen in the past, or not issues, but I've looked to fade him against good strikers just because I haven't particularly rated his striking, but he's definitely improved it, to your point. Like his striking looked way better against Puna. And even the shots he eats, like he's a tough bastard. Like Strickland put him out, but it was after I think he landed 100 strikes in 7 minutes. Like Allen was just eating him like a machine gun and walking through him until he couldn't walk through him anymore in that fight. And so I agree. I think the Curtis KO path is fairly narrow. I don't think he can outstrike him really. I know he can't outgrapple him. I actually kind of like the Allen KO prop though, because believe it or not, Curtis is like 35 fights into his career and has never been subbed. And he's fought some like pretty good grapplers. It's just, he's a pretty responsible defensive grappler. And Allen is not, I shouldn't say Allen has bad jiu-jitsu. He obviously doesn't, but I also don't think Allen has the best positional jiu-jitsu ever either. So I just don't really think a sub is very live. But to your point, Curtis has been put out a bunch of times in his career. And actually, if you go through the Allen tape, he hits pretty hard, man. He's hurt a bunch of guys regionally and in the UFC. So I like that. I actually might tell you on that, to be completely honest. Plus a FanDuel?
Yeah, FanDuel had plus 850 earlier today, so I took that. I think it was plus. It might have been 650. I think it was 850 though. Also like Allen's not a dummy. I mean, Allen knows that if he like puts out Curtis and he can scream at Strickland in the corner, maybe he can get that fight that he wants to get back and lose that one again if he wants to.
Yeah, I really don't think him fighting Sean Strickland again is a good idea for his career.
No.
But
not for his health.
No. But moving on, I'll stick with you here. We got Jimmy Crute, Jamal Hill. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's like pretty obvious that Jamal Hill, I think he even said some shit online where he didn't feel good about this training camp. He's coming back pretty freaking soon for an injury that requires some rehabilitation. He could probably still do some road work, with that injury, but just overall, I can't really imagine that he got a hell of a lot of training here. Hill, he basically has been living off of the fact that he's really long for the division and has really high volume, but fundamentally he makes a lot of mistakes with his stand-up. And also, like, we know that he can be taken down, and we know that Jimmy Crute can pretty much take anybody down in the first round. So I hopped on the Jimmy Crute sub line, and I also poked submission 1 at plus 850. I think I bet sub at plus 380. I mean, if you want to give some credence to the Jamal Hill side, Jimmy Crute, I'm not a huge fan of his stand-up where it is right now. He throws big power, but he did get jabbed by Anthony Smith about 20 times in round 1 and seemed completely lost as to what to do. But like everybody saw, I mean, it was pretty easy for him to get Anthony Smith down while he had a freaking ankle that was bending the opposite way. So, I mean, Crute's a really good grappler. And I, by the way, I know he's going to be looking for the sub. So like, I know for a fact he's going to be looking for the sub. So I think it's worth a play, but I'm not going like crazy on it or anything.
Yeah, I like Crute here. I haven't bet it just because I was like, initially it was like minus 200, and I was like, I don't know if I want to lay Jimmy Crute minus 200. Now he's down to minus 160, and it seems like Hill money's coming in. I'm a little shocked that Jimmy Crute is a bigger favorite against Jamal, or was a bigger favorite against Anthony Smith than he is against Jamal Hill. I mentioned it to you in our group chat earlier. It's like, I think Anthony Smith would do dirty things to Jamal Hill if they
would kill him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very weird how, Anthony Smith went from being the most overrated fighter in the UFC to like one of the more underrated fighters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of this, it's so weird. I remember vividly, and I didn't even bet the fight, but I almost bet Clinton Abreu against Hill. And I remember everybody doing their Jamal Hill victory laps after he knocked out Abreu in under a minute. And it's like, you didn't actually get to see anything of his grappling. What we have seen of his grappling has been pretty ugly. First of all, his IQ in grappling exchanges really bugs me. Like, Paul Craig was not in any position to finish that fight, but he managed to take his left arm off his chest and just leave one arm there to be grabbed by Craig. You go to the Darko fight. Darko landed 6 and 9 takedowns, and he's an okay wrestler, but he's nothing special. And I've seen people talking about Hill's get-up game, but it's like, actually watch it. If someone takes me down, I am not an MMA fighter, and holds my legs but doesn't grab my post hand, I could butt scoot to the fence. It's not really that hard.
It's just geometry. That's all it is.
Yeah. So it's like he's getting credit for doing something that literally anybody in the UFC could do in that situation. Whereas someone like Crute, if he gets him down, he's going to grab his wrist and he's going to put him down and pass probably. And even if you go further back to the regional scene with Hill, his grappling looked pretty bad there as well. He just never really faced anybody that could capitalize on it. This is really the first guy other than Abreu, and that fight ended in an instant, who has the ability to do that. Plus, I think Crute's probably the first guy he's fighting who actually has the athleticism or a comparable degree of athleticism to himself. I agree with you to give credit to Hill that he's the better striker, but Hill has a tendency to leave his head on the center line and his chin right up in the air. And like, while I would favor Hill to win minutes on the feet, Crute swings hard, man. And if he's just leaning back to get out of the way of shots, it wouldn't shock me for Crute to put him out, to be completely honest with you. Like, I don't mean to shit all over Jamal Hill, because in theory, I think Hill has a pretty good base for 205. The ability to box and keep a high output and have great cardio is great for the division. The problem is Hill is a guy who should probably be fighting, mid-tier guys still. He shouldn't be fighting top 15 guys yet. His game is not really evolved yet to be at that level, in my opinion. And now he's fighting a guy who is a pretty good wrestler and a very good grappler. I don't think he's ready for it. And you're saying that Crute's going to hunt for the sub. I mean, that increases my confidence, because if I know Crute's going to grapple in this fight, I think he's just going to do to Hill whatever he wants. I know there's issues with people concerned about his cardio, but we've seen it a million times. Cardio is hard when you have to work. I don't think he's going to have to work that hard once he gets him down, to be completely honest. Yeah.
No.
So,
and also, like, Hill doesn't really train at a good camp.
Yeah.
Like, his
where
camp,
is he train?
It's I think it's in like Michigan, but it's some BJJ, like, it's basically like, a family camp. Like, I think it's some kind of a Gracie affiliate, but it's not really like some top team that you would know of. And also, I mean, he's just coming back way too soon, dude. Yeah. This guy should have taken some time off. He should have, but I know he has a lot of kids, so he probably has to like pay the bills, But I think he has like 6 kids. But
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but so I mean, like, respect to him. He's trying to make a living here, and maybe he does get it done, But yeah, it seems like he's coming back too soon, when somebody like that would really benefit from, I feel like, taking maybe 6 months off and kind of traveling around and kind of messing around with some high level camps. But yeah, he didn't do that for this fight. It's a small cage too, so Crute should be able to get those takedowns pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Hill, like I said, I think his base for MMA is pretty good. And if he did take 6 months to a year off and actually learned, just general fundamental takedown defense and submission defense, he's probably got a very high. There's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of guys, most of the guys in the division, to be honest. If I could trust him to not get put on his back, I'd probably favor him against, just on, volume and cardio alone. 2 things nobody has at 205,
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on, we got Clay Guida, the Carpenter, coming back off of somehow losing a striking decision to Mark Madsen, taking on Leonardo Santos. I actually know some sharp people who like Guida here. I can't do it, though. I rode a heavy with Guida against Madsen. And it's not even the fact that he got out jabbed in that fight. Like, Guida's not a great boxer. It's the fact that he lost a volume-based decision to a guy with no cardio. That, to me, is, I don't want to say unforgivable, because I love Clay. I've cashed many tickets on him in the past, but it's a clear sign to me that age is getting to him. Like, that is not a fight he should have lost. And if he was having issues striking, people will say, oh, he was the worst grappler, but we didn't really even get to see that. Guida actually was a college wrestler who has very good jiu-jitsu, and he didn't even try to use it. It just bothered me a lot. And now he fights Leo Santos, who, I'll be honest, if he wasn't as old as Queen Elizabeth, I'd probably be laying Dawson. Like that is the concern, though, right? Like I don't trust Santos' cardio at all, but he's the better striker. He hits harder than Guida. He's the much better submission grappler, and like we just saw the dude go 14 minutes and 59 seconds with Grant Dawson and give up one takedown on 13 attempts. Dawson's a better wrestler than Guida by a good margin. If he wasn't getting takedowns here, I really don't think Guida's going to get them. I actually think there's a reasonable chance Guida does typical Guida stuff and sticks his head in the guillotine after getting hurt. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always the case that Santos could drop a volume-based decision. And had I not seen the Madsen fight, I might have signed up for Guida there. But we just saw him fight a worse striker in Mark Madsen and not be willing to really let his hands go and try to push the volume there. I can't trust him to do it here. I don't think skill-wise he offers many issues for Santos at all. The big question is just Santos' age and cardio, but I honestly don't think he should have much of an issue. What do you think, Shawn?
Yeah, so I bet I did like a small bet on the Santos submission. I think it was plus 600. Yeah, I'm basically just taking a flyer on what you said. Either Santos hits him with a big right hand and subs him, or let's imagine that Guida does stick his head into a guillotine, or let's imagine Guida does put him up against the fence and Santos does have a decent trip when he's along the fence. And he's very reliable to just immediately step over to mount and try and take your back and choke you. So Santos has very legit skills. Like you said, he is very legitimately old. So we don't really know what to expect over 15, but just go back and watch that Madsen fight. First of all, I did think that Guida won because he did drop him in round 1, and I thought he did take round 2. So I think it was a bullshit decision in my opinion. But I mean, Guida was constantly short on his punches against Madsen, who's much shorter than Santos, who doesn't use range. He doesn't use range like Santos. He doesn't have the boxing of Santos. So I just think that Santos can pretty reliably just stick him at range. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Santos decision here, but I decided to take the upside on the plus 600. Yeah, I think those sharp people on Guida are just hoping that activity wins, because you would look at a fighter like Santos and think it can. But, dude, Guida was, like, seriously, like sometimes against Madsen, like a full foot short on his punches. He doesn't really throw straight very often. He likes to kind of burst in and throw hooks. And Madsen was jabbing him up pretty much every time he was trying to do it, especially in round 3. So, yeah, I do think this is a decent spot for Santos, but I'm not playing the money line.
To be honest, I sort of think I kind of have a feeling that Guida might be pretty KO or bust, to be honest. Like, I could see him putting Santos out, like, on an overhand, like, if he actually managed to close distance. But, I mean, in your mind, what's the scenario where Guida wins minutes to win a decision here? Because like, even if he gets cage push time, I have to believe Santos is going to be landing the better shots, right?
He's gonna probably take him down too, dude. Yeah, like Santos has kind of a sneaky like trip that he uses pretty reliably, and it's not like Guida is 32 years old anymore. You know, he's not going to be, you know, full of Monster Energy drink and scrambling out and burping in between rounds. You know, he's just not the same guy anymore. I think a lot of people are looking at the Bobby Green fight and thinking, oh, maybe he can like, you know, do this kind of like win minutes type of style and keep it close like he did against Bobby. But what's the thing that Bobby does every fight? He allows you to keep it close. And to be honest with you, in that fight, Bobby was almost playing with his food. He was doing like very creative takedown defense traps, like picking his ankle, doing all sorts. Bobby was basically just having fun in there. So like, I don't think that's live here personally.
To be honest, that fight wasn't that close either. Like, it's just that people can't score fights, don't know how to score fights. But
yeah, but I mean, I can see why, you know, they thought it was, because we do see decisions go based on like stupid activity. But like, yeah, Bobby totally won that fight bell to bell, in my opinion. Like, I don't know.
So moving on, we have one of the best fights of the year on paper. I'm going to go to you here, Sean. We got Bradley Riddell taking on Rafael Fiziev. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I bet Brad's money line. I bet it at -103. I might add more if it continues to go, more in Fiziev's favor. I also bet Bradley KO. I think it was plus 500 at FanDuel, or 550, I think. And I also bet Bradley KO. It's going to be a Barb collab. I bet Bradley KO round 3 at plus 2,600 and then round 3 at 2,200. So for me, I just think this is a decent Brad spot. I understand why people would look at this and think, oh, Fiziev, amazing kickboxing accolades, amazing. He's the Tiger Muay Thai coach. He puts on these really dynamic, fun fights. But let's be honest here. He's not like a super intelligent fighter. He's basically an action fighter who likes to stand in front of you and slam big kicks. And Brad's a pretty intelligent fighter, and he also builds as fights go, as opposed to where Fiziev kind of fades as fights go. He usually loses round 3 in any fight. I kind of don't think that Fiziev is going to put out Brad. I know a lot of people that think this is going to go to decision, but I think when you're getting those numbers on Brad KO3, you kind of got to take them. I just think that Brad is very sneaky technical. Some of the stuff he does to pivot off of shots with his boxing is just super high level compared to somebody like Fiziev, who he's not necessarily a great boxer as much as he is a good kickboxer. So obviously he could slam body kicks and leg kicks. But dude, Bobby was kind of moving away from all that the whole fight. I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point. If you kind of just feint on Fiziev in the first 2 rounds and just bait him, he's going to be throwing power and missing a lot of times, or just hitting your toes. The only difference is that Bobby sometimes doesn't make you pay for it, whereas Brad always makes you pay for it when you miss on him. So I think it's a good spot for Brad. I'm willing to die on this hill. And I've made money. I made good money off of Fiziev during his UFC career, but I think this is the spot for Brad. What do you think?
Let me ask you something. If you could reline Bobby Green Fiziev after watching it, where would you line it?
I mean, do I know if those fucking idiot judges are the judges, or is this in Vegas?
Good judges.
Okay, good judges. Okay. I mean, probably Bobby plus 150, maybe Bobby plus 125. I don't know, because, Fiziev was pretty active in those first 2 rounds. But if they fought again today after seeing Bobby knock out Al, I think Bobby's kind of learning his lesson. I don't know, man. I think Bobby beats him. So I would very easily bet Bobby at plus 150 against Fiziev. But I know a lot of people that were happy to cash their stupid ass square play on Fiziev will think that's nuts. But dude, whoever that judge is, and I got into a huge ass Twitter argument with him, that stupid Muay Thai coach who scored it 30-27 for Fiziev. That guy is a fucking idiot, dude. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Most of those kicks were toes landing on Bobby's shins. So I don't know, man. Fiziev's fun, but he's all action, not a lot of finesse.
How would you line Bobby versus Brad?
Bobby versus Brad. Fuck you, Pepe. That's tough. I mean, I think you got to give Bradley solid favorite, to be honest with you. I think probably minus 175 or something like that would probably be appropriate.
Yeah. So my thing is, I think this is, I don't want to say it's similar to Bobby fight because Bobby and Brad are different fighters, but I think the places where Bobby had big success, in particularly countering on a lot of the kicks Fiziev throws are naked. That's just no one talks about it because he hasn't really fought guys that will punish it. But when Bobby started picking up with it, he started tagging him pretty much every time he threw kicks. Yeah. Brad didn't pick that stuff up early, and there's the difference in, I don't even know if it's a difference in power so much as Brad sits down on his shots, whereas Bobby doesn't. Plus, Brad actually will cut an angle and throw a combination on you there, whereas Bobby was kind of happy to throw single shots on him. I think the dynamic's somewhat similar, except I trust Brad earlier in this fight a lot more than I did Bobby. You know, I don't really see – I can see Fiziev knocking him out early in the fight. Like, don't get me wrong. He definitely could. We've seen Brad wobbled a few times in the UFC, and Brad definitely trusts his chin a bit more than I would like him to, especially when he's getting reads early in fights. But I do think once he gets his reads here, he's going to cut him to ribbons. And it's like, it's one of these fights where the boxing isn't really close at all between the two of them. Like, Brad is a couple levels ahead of him as a boxer. And the kicking, it looks great and it works when someone's not throwing a lot of volume back at you and you're throwing a ton of kicks. But when someone is punching you in the face over and over and over again, like Brad is likely going to be doing to you, it doesn't look as good to the judges. You know, judges generally score edge strikes better. And so I guess what I'm getting at is I think Brad's a better striker all around. You know, maybe he doesn't have the kicking game of Fiziev, but he's a much better boxer. His timing is a lot better. Once he gets his reads in this fight, I think he picks him apart. And you look at the actual round dynamic, like, I think Brad's probably 80% to win the third round in this fight. I feel pretty comfortable.
Maybe even higher. Yeah. Honestly, it could be like 90% because Fiziev fades and Brad builds, dude. Brad trains fucking hard, clearly.
And if Fiziev doesn't actually decides to conserve energy and not go crazy early, I pretty much think he fucks himself, because if he gives Brad kind of a lower volume pace to get his reads, I don't see how he wins the fight, to be honest. I kind of just look at it like, if you think Brad's 80% to win round 3, well, I don't think he's worse than 40-60 in round 1, and I would favor him to win round 2, to be honest. I think I'd favor him somewhat significantly, not as significantly as 3. And so in a decision, I favor Brad a lot. In terms of who's more likely to finish him, I think Brad is a lot more likely. Look, he's not like KOing guys stiff, but he's hurting a lot of people. You know, he hurt Malarkey, who's, I mean, as durable as it gets, a couple times in that fight. He hurt Drew Dober, who, again, is super durable. I think Brad probably has as much, if not more, finishing upside. There's not a grappling path for Fiziev. If anybody's going to have grappling success here, it's going to be Brad. Yeah. Like I said, I trust his reads more. It's almost kind of like, I don't want to compare him to Jan because they're different fighters, but you can see it in every fight. Like early in the Dober fight, Dober was having a lot of success. And then there was a moment about 6-7 minutes in where Brad just kind of figured him out and just pretty much picked him apart the rest of that fight. You know, I sort of think it happens here. I think Fiziev's fun. I like him, but I think people look too much at, you know, look, he knocked out Moicano, but that's because Moicano's an idiot who just continues to throw that fucking low jab with his head on the center line and then won a close decision against Bobby Green. It's like Brad's fight, you know, Drew Dober's a different level than any of the guys Fiziev's beat, you know, and Brad worked him over after he kind of got his reads in that fight. And I know not everybody's a stats guy either, but I mean, if you look at the stats too, on top of the tape where it's like, it's pretty clear Brad's got the edge late and probably in the middle of the fight, Brad throws a lot more strikes. He lands a lot more strikes, and his opponents actually get off less volume against him than Fiziev's do against him. There's just really no way I can cut this where it's not like Brad 65%. Like, I give Fiziev a reasonable chance to KO him early. I give him a okay chance to maybe edge a close decision, but I don't really see a way that Fiziev wins a dominant decision, whereas I think there's a pretty clear way Brad does, you know? So, yeah, I think he's a clear favorite. I don't think this line makes any sense. I'm going to be on Brad pretty big, but we huddle, right? The line continues to move towards Fiziev, and so
I already moved on it like a couple days ago at 103, but I'm willing to add more because, dude, just look at the level of camp, too. I mean, like, yeah. City Kickboxing clearly has something good going on over there, man. And like Fiziev is the coach at his camp. Yeah. I mean, like really, like what kind of quality? I know it's Tiger Muay Thai, but like I just trust somebody who's being instructed over somebody who's the instructor. And especially based on what you were saying with the tape, when we're watching the tape, there's a guy that you and I are friends with. His name is This Chris. If you guys follow him on, you can probably find him on either of our friends lists. You can find him on Twitter. He's basically the biggest Brad stan I've ever seen. He posts up a lot of like little clips of things that Brad does. So if you guys want to see like a really sharp mind for the kickboxing game and who likes to analyze that stuff, just look at his timeline. Brad does a lot of cool ass shit, man.
He does. I mean, honestly, I think he should be like minus 185, minus 200, like pretty clearly in the spot. So,
yeah.
I mean, again, it's like it's Bobby if Bobby threw more volume and had killer instinct, right? Like Brad actually, like Brad is not, Bobby's out there talking shit to him late in round 3 instead of trying to finish him. If Brad gets him in the spots Bobby did, I think he gets him out of there, to be honest.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So.
Which is why I bet it.
Yeah. I will be betting it. Moving on, we have a great main event. We got Rob Font and the GOAT, Jose Aldo. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird fight. I'll go first, and then I'll let you take the majority of this breakdown, because this is the kind of fight I lose money on consistently, to be honest. Like, I feel pretty certain that Jose Aldo is the better fighter. Like, of that, I have very little doubt. He's got a more complete striking game. If he actually decided to proactively kick legs here, I think he makes easy work of Font. But when does Aldo ever proactively kick legs? Not for years. So hard to rely on that. But I do think, the dynamic, or, everybody knows the dynamic in this fight. Aldo is going to look good early and probably be winning the fight early. And it's whether or not, the cardio gets to him late. I can see, I guess, the argument for betting Font on, Font throws a lot of strikes and he'll take over when Aldo's cardio starts to go. Except, the guys who have gotten off volume on Jose Aldo? Max Holloway and Volk. Even Jan didn't get it off until Aldo was half dead in round 5 of that fight. Max Holloway and Volk might be the 2 best featherweights ever, legitimately. Like, nobody else is going out there and voluming up Jose Aldo. I don't really think Rob Font's going to be that guy. The concern is the cardio. That's my concern, and I don't really know how much to weigh it, because there's a part of me in my head that's like, maybe I'm treating the 5-round thing like too seriously, because I don't think after Font eats a couple big counters or a couple huge body shots, he's going to be super aggro and throw 300 strikes. The Sun South fight happened, even though we want to pretend it didn't. But also it's something I can't really get out of my head. So like, I lean Aldo a decent amount, but I also am kind of nervous about betting it. Like, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I put a bet on Aldo at the early line. It's a small bet. It's a unit. But yeah, I just think it pretty much seems exactly what you're saying. But I will say, for the cardio issue, I know that it's become really typical to just say that Aldo has bad cardio and sort of rely on that. But in a lot of those fights, it's fights where, he's getting beat up. I mean, even in the Jan fight, he basically looked like he was dead from that body shot in round 1. And then he only gets tired, like the latter part of round 4 is when he really starts to actually fade and isn't landing on Jan much anymore. So for me, I think that's a bit overblown. I think that Aldo is a lot more technical than Font. I think that there is some merit to say that, Font is really long and can land 1-2s on Aldo, because Aldo does rely on his reflexes to kind of move away from punches, and he is getting older. He's 35. But he's putting such a heavy emphasis on his boxing training. He's training with a really, really good outside partners outside of Nova União. And I don't know, man. I just don't think I can favor Rob Font when I saw what Aldo was doing to Jan. I just think that, like, Rob Font has had 2 matchups as of late with 2 guys who had absolutely zero fucking idea how to parry a jab. And he basically just jabbed up those 2 guys, We know that Marias has pretty poor distance management and head movement and is a bit of a 4-minute or bust guy. And then Cody honestly looked totally lost. It's kind of shocking how bad his stand-up looks. If Font gets put on the back foot, he's pretty much fucked, in my opinion. He's really had a lot of success just pressuring people. So I won't be surprised if Aldo mixes in takedowns either here. I don't think it's going to be the game plan, but I definitely think he can break up some pressure from Font if Font starts to come at him. And yeah, I mean, even in the Jan fight, he was landing leg kicks. And in the Cheeto fight, he landed a couple really nice leg kicks. So maybe he just didn't do it against what was the last fight again?
Oh my God, Munoz.
Maybe he just didn't do it as much against Munoz. He landed a couple really nice ones, but because he just had figured out the range and he was jabbing
good there too.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of overblown narratives with Aldo, and when you're really, if you're going to be on the Font side at juice odds, you're basically betting against greatness because Aldo is fucking greatness. And like you said, he's only lost to the absolute elite people in their prime too. So yeah,
if you look at the Max fight too, it's like, yeah, Max broke him, but Max also historically good durability and the kind of guy who's happy to eat 2 shots on the chin to throw 7 back at you. It's just like you don't have. There are no other Max Holloways because they can't exist because most people aren't built like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't think I saw someone just say it in the comments, but I don't think the first time Font eats a couple shots on the chin over the top. And, you know, Cody actually countered him over the top of the jab a couple times. And I don't think after he eats a couple of those, you're going to see him really looking to walk Aldo down and just stick a jab in his face, to be honest. It's just a weird fight, right? Because it's like, although believe it or not, did you know Font's only a year younger than Aldo?
I did not know.
Yeah, Font is not. This is not a guy who's 27. I like Font too, which is the funny thing, but I don't think he's even made that many improvements so much as, I mean, like you said, the Cody fight, Cody looks like a broken fighter, honestly.
Yeah.
He does. You know, none of the boxing that used to be slick is there. The guy wasn't moving his head at all against Font after the first 2 minutes. He kept trying to do that dip counter. He tried to do it like 15 times. A meme shot. He just seems lost, you know?
He was circling at the wrong time too. Like he'd get himself all the way to the cage and then try and circle, and he would like stumble out getting hit by straight punches. And it was just really poor ring craft from Cody the entire fight.
It was very bizarre, and he wouldn't let his hand. And that's the thing, you know, people can talk about Aldo's volume, and I am a stats guy, but something you have to understand, like, is a guy getting dramatically out attempted by his opponents? No, Aldo almost never gets out attempted because he
hits hard.
Right. And he punishes you if you overextend on him. Like that was honestly one of my big takeaways from the Cody fight is Cody didn't really try to counter much at all that fight. He basically would let Font get off combinations and then kind of reset. Font's not going to get off combinations for free at all this fight. And we're 18 months removed from Ricky Simone hurting Font on the feet. You know, so it's just like that I watched that fight and it's like, look, he beat Simone clean, but Ricky Simone's a good fighter, but he's a wrestler. He is not a striker, and he had way too much boxing success that fight for me to be confident that Font's going to go out here and, as you said, you're going against one of the best ever. Going out here and just beat Jose Aldo,
who looked in pretty good form his last fight. I mean,
and would you trust Font to look like that against Munoz? I wouldn't.
No, he'd probably get his fucking legs kicked apart.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but let's just say Aldo looked fresher than ever. I hear they have good doctors in Brazil. And if they do, then I know I'm just kidding. But
it's true. No, I mean, it's true. I mean, he could be on acai again, and also to one thing some people underestimate with having to cut all that weight that he does is you have to be in tremendous physical shape to be able to get your weight down like that. So he's doing a lot of road work. I think for Aldo, usually why he gasses is because he tenses up. But it's not like Font's going to be landing the body shots like Jan was landing. I mean, we all know Jan's playbook at this point. He lets you throw up top so he can hit your body. And he baited Aldo into that, and then he did it again to Sandhagen. So I mean, is Rob Font really going to be shelling up and then throwing very precise body shots to Aldo? I kind of doubt it. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Aldo is going to be hitting Font in his really long torso. So,
well, that's the thing too, right? All the attritional work in this fight, even with the cardio dynamic being what it is, all of the attritional work is going to come from Aldo. Likely all the body shots, all the leg kicks. It's just for Font to win, it relies on Aldo gassing, and that could happen. But that is what the number is saying, is that there's a 60% chance that Rob Font's going to either finish him or look bad early and take over late when Aldo gasses. I do not see, of course I say this and Font's going to go put on a masterclass on Saturday to watch, but I really struggle to see a scenario where Font looks good for the first 2.5 rounds of this fight. I really, really just struggle to see it, So
I don't know many sharp people that are on Font. I'll just say that.
I don't either. Yeah, I mean, pretty much nobody, to be honest.
Basically the only people I see on Font, I don't consider them to be sharp. Yeah. Maybe they'll look like geniuses, but I mean, you just got to trust what everybody's seeing. Everybody who has an eye for it.
And it's also like Aldo has had the gas tank thing his whole career, and he's won like 4 or 5 5-round decisions in his career. It's not like he's never won a 5-round decision.
It's so overblown. I'm telling you, that cardio thing is like very overrated, because he's slowed down in fights where really any mortal would slow down in. Yeah. So I don't really understand the knock. He looked pretty fucking fresh against Munoz. And also he was fresh enough to, wrestle Chito Vera in round 3. People were saying, oh, he's slowing down. And then he grapples the fuck out of him for round 3. I mean, like, how much slowing down could you possibly be doing if you're winning a grappling match and then looking relatively fresh after the fight? I mean, this is 5 rounds, and Aldo does traditionally start to slow in round 4 and in those crazy firefights. But Rob is, like you said, going to have to put attritional work in, and it's just not typically what he does.
I also don't think Rob's going to oblige a firefight, to be honest. I mean, when has he ever?
No.
When has he ever gotten into a firefight? That's not really his game,
No.
So
he's going to try and keep distance.
But yeah, I'm with you. I like Aldo. I'm still debating whether to bet it. I'm like, I'm just nervous about it.
Just do it small. Yeah. Like, there's just these, we've talked about a couple of these fights tonight where it's like you see a clear technical edge, but you just necessarily can't 100% trust the guy. Well, you just got to size accordingly to everybody who's watching. I mean, it sucks when they lose because you're like, fuck, I knew it. But it doesn't suck that bad when you lose, like, small amounts of money on it.
Also, like, we're due for one of these cards where favorites go like 2-10, right? At some point,
I fucking hope so. for my sake this weekend, I hope so.
The last 2 months have been absolutely fucking brutal.
Yeah,
but that's it, guys.
It's been a good year, though.
Well,
it's been a good year, though.
It has been a good year. It has been a good year. That's the one. It does not feel like a good year while it's happening, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching tonight. Shawn, thank you for coming on. You can find Shawn at Shawn Orr on Twitter. Really sharp guy. Posts his plays every week. I'm John at MMA Fox. If you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. And good luck this weekend, everybody. Thanks a lot, Shawn. Take it easy, everyone.
Peace.